Welcome to JLive. I'm Laura Mandel, JArt's Executive Director, and it's great to be with you for JLive, our virtual series of bite-sized conversations about Jewish life and art with the best artists with Boston connections. Today, I'm with artist, quilter, and Judaica maker Anita Rabinoff-Goldman. Hi, Anita.
Hello.
I'm so happy to be here with you today. Before we launch in, I just want to remind everyone that if you have any questions during our conversation, you are welcome to put them in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen, and we'll answer as many of them as time allows. So, Anita,
Yes.
let's start by getting to know you through some of your work.
Okay.
All right, so we have some photos coming. I love this one. So start by telling us what this is.
Wow, there's my baby. That's my granddaughter. She's 6. In a couple of days, she'll be 6, but this was when she was 3 years old. And it perfectly captures the super hero she is in our world, and the climber and the monkey, and also the ballerina. And I have to say that actually adding the ballet skirt was her idea, and it was so perfect. When she saw that I was working on this, she said, "But where's my tutu?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I don't know, but we have to add that in." So this is my my portrait of her. And I did a portrait of my daughter about this age, each of my daughters about this age, my grandson a little bit younger. And so this is my portrait of her, which she's waiting to hang in her house, but it's still in my studio. But anyway, it's pretty typical of the kind of work I do in terms of collaging. I really see my fabric work as a type of collaging and really painting with fabric. And so I would say this is typical of most of my work, but also, very personal, because she's my girl.
It's beautiful. All right, let's look at some others.
So this is also extremely personal. I have a print hanging in my house from my parents of 4 men playing chess. And I mean, it's hung in my house for ages. And I was looking at it one day and I was like, that's me and my friends playing mahjong. And while it's not Jewish per se, the women I play with are all Jewish. Of course, mahjong has a big Jewish component in America. And so this is kind of an homage to my friends. And it's called The Tiles That Bind, because really we always say that mahjong is more than a game. It's really the time we spend together around the table, playing with each other and talking and just sharing lives. And that it actually became a challenge over the past year because we couldn't get together to play. But somebody figured out how to make a mahjong game online. And so we've been playing online, and that's been pretty fun. So yeah, so again, a lot of collaging of fabric and color.
Beautiful.
Paint, like painting with fabric. That's what it is.
It's beautiful.
Thanks.
And the next one.
So again, I tried to, the photos that I sent are mostly things that relate of my work that relate Jewishly. I did a lot of work that's not Jewishly related, but this is called Searching for God at Ramah, and it's pretty old. It's probably about 20 years old. But yeah, I never really understood what it was about per se for myself. I could never really decipher it, but it just came to me kind of intuitively, and I went with it. And again, this collage work, there's a lot of, yeah.
I feel so perfectly apropos this week with Shavuot, because it looks to me like Moses holding tablets with letters on them.
Yeah, a lot of people have said actually a piece of fabric from the Marimekko, believe it or not, that I bought at a Crate and Barrel outlet a million years ago. And it had olives in it, and I didn't really understand that, but I'm sure it wasn't purposeful. But yeah, so a lot of people see it that way. I don't think that's where I was going with it, but so this is one piece that really means a lot of things to a lot of different people, and that's fine. So
Beautiful.
and it's been in my house for a long time, and we love it. So yeah.
Very nice. And next.
So I had a Judaic fiber arts business for a number of years, and I did most of the commissions I had were taluses, and but I also did a lot of Torah covers. So the one on the right is I made for my synagogue in Albany, where we lived for 40 years before we moved to Boston. It is we had a rescue tour at our synagogue, Temple Israel in Albany, and I was commissioned to make a cover for it. So it's a little hard to tell in the picture, but the tracks to Auschwitz are in the foreground, and around the sides you can't really see, but there's the fencing and the barbed wire, and it's all out of manipulated fabric. And those tracks, instead of leading to the crematoria, are leading to a forest of trees. There are 6 trees for each of the 6 million, and the shape of the trees is like the shape of a flame. So each tree is really a memorial candle to the 6 million who perished, 6 million Jews who perished in the Holocaust. Obviously, there were many others who perished as well.
It must have been a pretty incredible experience working on a cover for a Holocaust Torah, since that is a rare opportunity.
It was, and I was really given a lot of latitude in creating it, and a lot of support from the rabbi, and yeah, it was very meaningful. I used some techniques that I developed for creating to create the fabric that I then cut into to create the each of the elements of the trees and the foreground, and the velvet in the back was hand dyed. I pretty much all the fabric in that was dyed by me. And
so when you're saying you're painting with fabric, you really mean it, down to the beginning of the fabric.
Right, and all that fabric started out white, and it was dyed in the silk, organza, silk noil, a lot of thread manipulation. It was that was the way I worked for that, and actually the other Torah covers that you see use similar techniques. So yeah, that Torah cover was in the United Synagogue calendar one year.
Wow.
Way back when.
Wow.
So I'm very proud. Yeah.
It's really, really special. Okay, so before we go to your Seeing Torah project that I want to talk about, I know we have one more image to see. So tell us about this piece.
Okay, this is was also a commission from a friend who also gave me great latitude. She said she wanted it to be about light, and I had always I obviously the best commissions are the ones that give you a little direction but don't micromanage. So somebody had told me many moons ago that God lives in this space between the imminent, the like the local inside experience of life, and then the transcendent, the larger experience of God, and the spark lives in between those two spaces, the transcendent and the immanence and the transcendence. And so I always loved that, and I always wanted to do a piece about it. So when my friend asked me to do a piece about light, I thought, now is the time. So the top part of the finger shape, that starts with the DNA and our molecular structure and what we're made of, and it goes through personal relationships. I don't know if you can see the image of the two people right after the DNA, and then it goes into our experience of nature and love, and the hands sort of offering up the love and into that section, and then it goes more into our experience of nature, and then into our experience of the divine. So yeah, so, and the back was all collaged with teeny tiny pieces of fabric, and yeah, I love this piece, and hangs.
Anita, I have to say, in addition to your use of color and the meaning in your pieces, I'm just in awe of the details. Every time I look at one of your pieces, I want to get really close to it because there's so much in there. It's incredible.
Thank you. The fun part is that I pull from, I can go back into sketchbooks, like, and I'm not a regular sketchbook person, like, for some people it's really a regular practice, but I'll pull, like, that heart was, if I consciously go into thinking about what elements that I want to put in, it gets very laden. But when I have like a concept in mind, I can go back into old sketchbooks and find images that fit, and then it just feels more organic, and it feels fresher, and just not so so heavy. And I can talk about that a little more in the Seeing Torah portion, because there are many.
Right.
I joke with my kids that I'm very left brain, right brain. Like, I was a business manager at a private school, and I helped my husband run his practice, and that's one half of my brain, and then the other half is the part that does all this creative stuff. And my daughter would say that she could tell which half of my brain worked on a piece, and many of those very organizational, concrete pieces ended up in the garbage because I hated them, and I would just redo it and come up with something a little bit more from my heart, which I felt expressed what I wanted to express better. So yeah, so
it's a fascinating way of understanding your process.
Well, yeah. Right, it's not true for every artist, but that's just my reality.
Yeah, no, I think it's fascinating.
Yeah.
So, okay, since you mentioned Seeing Torah, I will say I absolutely love this series. When you first came to me and you said, can I bring you some of my quilts and can we talk? And I mean, we must have sat in my office for 2 or 3 hours going into the detail of some of these quilts because I was just so taken. So let's look at some of them. We have a few pictures, and I would love it if you could talk us through them a little bit. So, and tell us a little bit about this project. What is Seeing Torah?
Sure. So for about 4.5 years ago, we moved here, and I was newly retired, and I had pretty much finished up all the projects that I had started before we moved. And I was looking for something new to do, and I didn't want to just be making pretty quilts anymore. I wanted to be doing something with a little bit more meat and a little bit more meaning for me. And so I realized that I had never read the Torah completely, and I had never read it start to finish for starters. I know I had bits and pieces here and there. So I had never read it start to finish, and there were many portions that I had never read ever. So I thought, well, I had years before I had done a little bit of study with my rabbi in Albany, and every once in a while I would do a visual reflection or response to what we studied. And I had done that with some Talmud study that I did, and I liked the process. I liked the fact that I was working very small because it was a very immediate response, and it was something I could finish quickly and I didn't have to labor over it. So I thought, well, I'm gonna start right after, right when we start Bereshit, and I'm gonna read the portion, do some study, and do a response. And I did, and to my amazement, I actually finished. I actually did it for a whole year, which was for a retired person, it kind of became a part-time job. My husband will tell you it was a full-time job because I really did a lot of reading and studying, and then making a piece every week. And some weeks there were double portions, and so I did 2 pieces, and sometimes I hated what I did and it ended up in the garbage, and I had to do another piece, and we went on vacation, and I took fabric and books with me. And anyway, at the end of a year, I had 54 pieces, and I surprised myself, and I started showing. I had midway through, I had showed it to some friends, and they said, "Oh, you should do something with this." And I was like, okay," because really, in general, most of my art, I don't make, except for that period of time when I had a business and was making commission work. My work's always been for myself. I've never been good about selling it or whatever. And so I was doing this for myself as a study tool, and as a way to process what I was studying. And anyway, so enough people said, "Oh yeah, you should," including you, said, "Yeah, you should definitely do something with this." So so I am, and I did put it all together. Every piece is now framed, and it's going to hang at Hebrew College in September for their 100th anniversary, and it's going to be an exhibit, which was supposed to hang, as you know, it was supposed to happen a year ago, but a week after the lockdown was when we were supposed to open. So the show's ready to go, and I hope everybody will come see it in September.
Yeah, and I cannot recommend getting to this show enough, because like I said, Anita, the detail in your work is stunning. I mean, even here, I've been looking at this piece for a while now, and I think I'm just realizing those are fingerprints on there, aren't they?
Yeah, those are my thumbprints. So this week's portion is by Midbar, and it's the beginning of the book of Numbers, and we have the tablets, and we have the tabernacle, and we're going to start marching into the desert, into the wilderness. And before we do, God tells Moses that he should take a census of all the able-bodied men over 20 years of age to form militias, and also the order of the tribes is prescribed in terms of which tribes are on the north, the south, the east, the west, and which guard the tabernacle. So you see the tabernacle in the middle, and of course, the obvious question to our modern sensibility is, where are the women? So I put the women in, as you can see, the little female symbol. So that's the Torah, but the beauty of Torah is that we find relevance in it for our lives today. And in thinking about women not being counted, if you're not counted, you have to wonder, what's your purpose? And if you're not counted, are you still enslaved to those who are counting you, and who are not counting you? And now in the news every day now, we see all this information about voting rights suppression and people not being allowed to be counted in our democracy. And it's a critical issue. And I think reading this portion today reminds us of all the people, women, people of different genders, different religious groups, anybody who is a non-white male in our society is not necessarily counted in the same way. And so we we're reminded of that, and I think in this portion, and I hope this piece helps us have that discussion.
Wow. The layers of depth in all of your pieces is really incredible. I mean, we could probably spend a solid hour on each. So since we are just about at time, let's look at some of your last photos, because I don't want to skip by some of these that are so beautiful.
The one on the left is Shoftim and Tzedek Tir Dof. And, you know, I made this project started 4 years ago. So when I made this, we were in the middle of a presidency where we weren't sure if the president had actually read the Constitution. And actually the portion says that the leader, the king, has to write his own copy of the law and keep it by him and keep it in his treasury, so he knows when he's making decisions what the laws are, and to kind of keep him honest. So that really resonated for me then, and of course it's true even nowadays, because we have some people in Congress who don't want to abide by the laws. So,
well, I also think it's beautiful and disheartening that the line "Tzedek Tzedek Tir Dov," justice, justice, you shall pursue, has become such a common mantra over the course of the last year for all of the reasons you said. So this just felt so timely to me, even though it's 4 years old. So it's really something. And this other piece, tell us.
The other piece that's from Kitavo, and it talks. First of all, it talks about bringing the fruits to the. I have this is the end of Deuteronomy, so it asks people to bring fruits in their baskets to the temples, to the shrine, I guess, to the tabernacle. So, you know, with Shavuot coming, that's this best. We're bringing, you know, all the 7 species. And it also, this is the part I really loved. It said, Moses summoned all Israel and said to them, "You have seen that the Lord did before your very eyes in the land of Egypt, the wondrous feats that you saw with your own eyes, those prodigious signs and marvels." So it's about keeping our eyes open to gratitude and to the wonders of our world, and also having an expanded consciousness to be successful as we go forward.
It's beautiful.
Thanks.
So this time flies by, and I have to admit we are at time, believe it or not. So actually, I would like to wrap us up with a great question from someone watching right now, which is, how did you get into fabric work in the first place? How did you get into the painting of fabric, the whole thing?
So I've always sewn since I was a kid. My grandmother, my mother taught me all sorts of needle arts, including sewing. And I guess the most pivotal thing was when I was in college. I went to an exhibit at the Whitney Museum of Art in New York, and I saw this seminal exhibit of a collection of quilts by a guy named Jonathan Holstein, and it showed quilts as modern art. And I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. And I came home and I said to my mom, I was an art major, and I said, this is what I'm going to do. And she said, fine. And so I did some other stuff in school. But soon after I got married, I took a quilting class, and that was it. And I just, I did some traditional work. And then I the modern quilting movement kind of boomed back in the 80s. And so there was a lot of information and surface design, and so it just, one thing led to another, and it was just, that was my creative medium. And yeah, so that's how I got into it. I just kind of always sewed.
I can relate. I think many of us in Jewish families have histories of, seamstresses and the like. So I think maybe it comes to us genetically. Well,
sure.
Anita, this has been incredible. I know we had more to talk about, but we are at time. So I just want to say thank you so much. This has been wonderful. So everybody knows the show that Anita referenced that will be at Hebrew College. I don't believe has an opening date yet, but I will. It will be emailed out to anybody who's with us right now. It will go out through the JARTS email list and the like. So you will have that information. And on our next JLive segment, we have another Anita. We have author Anita Diamond up on May 28th, speaking about her new book, which is just incredible. And of course, I have to say thank you to all of you who are here. Please know that JArts and JLive does not exist without your generous support. So please consider making a donation if you like what you're seeing. And Anita, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.